The Minnesota Wild just waltzed right into the home arena of the Carolina Hurricanes and handed them only their 5th regular season loss at home all season. Road Warriors off to a fantastic start to 2025. Let's get into the particulars as the Minnesota Wild pick up a 4-0 win. Gus Bus gets the shutout. 4 apples for Marco Rossi. And Matt Boldy got back on the score sheet. Let's fire this up.
You are Locked On Wild POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Minnesota Wild pick up a 4-0 win over the Carolina Hurricanes to improve to what continues to be an NHL best. 15-3-3 on the road. Who needs the XL Energy Center when you can just win every game that you play on the road? The Wilds with one of their more complete games of the season. Just dominated defensively. They scored on the best penalty kill in the NHL. They held the 6th best power play scoreless in 4 attempts, and I think we can count on one hand the number of times the Minnesota Wild have not allowed a power play goal this year. But they're starting to gain some nice momentum on the kill over the last few games. Eriksson Ek doesn't seem to have anything wrong with him after apparently limping pretty substantially to the X-ray room after the Washington game. He looks to be just fine. And goals from Matt Zuccarello, Matt Boldy, and Eriksson Ek. And then a second goal from Matt Zuccarello in the scorers column here in this one. So really fun game. Carolina's a great team. They've been one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference for a while. And the Wilds pretty effectively shut them down. Carolina generated 2.46 expected goals, and Filip Gustavsson stopped every single one of them. So a great performance from Gus. On the other side, offensively, the Minnesota Wild generated 2.55, and Peter Kochetkov gave up 4. So really solid performance. And if you would have told me that the Minnesota Wild would go into Washington and into Carolina and come away with wins against both of them, I would be very impressed. I would have been fine with 1 win of the 2 games or even 2 points out of 4. That's a tough schedule, a tough couple of games in a row against 2 of the best teams in the East, and the Minnesota Wild just continue to handle their business without Kirill Kaprizov, without Jared Spurgeon, without Jake Middleton. They just continue to get these quality wins. I'm going to dive into this probably for a future episode, MPH, because I really can't explain it. 12-3 now against the Eastern Conference this year. If the Wild simply played in the Eastern Conference, they'd probably go to the Stanley Cup. I mean, they just dominate the East, and they have no trouble with it. Doesn't matter if it's the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Toronto Maple Leafs or you name it. The Wild have, and not just this year, but in previous seasons too. For whatever reason, it just doesn't translate the same as much against the top teams in the West. So I'll look into that for it's definitely an oddity for sure. Britt joining us tonight. Pretty stoked to see Zucky wearing the A. He's always kind of been the captain without the title. He very much is a core piece of this leadership group for this team. Even when he's not wearing a letter, he's and we saw some of that on last year's team where he was, in some of those closed door meetings, was one of the more vocal players in trying to just get everybody to kind of get their stuff figured out. He's always been a vocal part of this team, and one of the leaders that they need, and that's hugely important for this Minnesota Wild team. And he had a monster game tonight. That entire top line, the Boldy, Rossi, Zuccarello combination, just had monster games tonight. Boldy with 3 points, Rossi with 4 points, Zuccarello with 3 points, and 4 shots on goal for Boldy. Rossi was a +3. Zuccarello had 5 shots on goal. So those two doing a nice job facilitating, with Marco Rossi also helping and stepping up and taking the shots. And it doesn't matter how you dice it. Just one of the more impressive wins, I think, of the season. One of the more complete games of the season for this Minnesota Wild team. Dylan is right on here. Glad we didn't we kept the lead. Glad we didn't take a coast. I get the lead and just kind of finish out the game. They kept on the attack, and I think this team just wanted to send a little bit of a message as the 2025 portion of the schedule started up, that it doesn't matter who's out of the lineup. They're just going to continue to go on the offensive and get it done. Defense did play out of their minds here tonight. The broadcast mentions, I think the Hurricanes were averaging something like 70 shot attempts per game so far this season, and the Minnesota Wild held them to almost, I think, right around 50, which is just a substantial difference for a team that generates as much as they do. And it was 44 unblocked shot attempts against Gustavsson tonight. 36 of them were low danger, 6 medium, and 2 high danger. So they just did a good job of really limiting what Carolina was able to get pretty much all night. And when you get offense from different sources, multiple sources, that helps out a ton as well. And look, Eriksson Ek, he's getting himself back into form. He snapped a goal streak. I wasn't aware that he was on a 17-game skid from a goals perspective. I wasn't aware that it was that long, but now Eriksson Ek gets one. And on the power play, he goes into that spot right in front of the net where he has lived for a large part of his career, and the Wilds get a power play goal. So that's just another great part of the equation, is you're starting to get people back in their spots and are starting to allow kind of the natural order to the dust to settle, everything to get to where it needs to be. Trav joining us. Nice win against a quality opponent with a depleted Wild lineup, and solid production throughout the lineup too. I know Ben Jones didn't actually get the goal, but nearly did. Nearly deflected a John Merrill shot in for a goal, but it was goal interference. So just another solid performance by this Minnesota Wild team. The careful of Faber, 30-33, and Old Man Brodin, almost 29 minutes of ice time. Yeah, those numbers are on the high side, but Brodin hasn't showed any signs of slowing down. So they, as long as they continue to play at a high level, you don't really have to worry about that. Travis Dermott played 6 minutes, 54 seconds tonight. I think it just was indicative of the matchups. I think that's what led to the high ice time. Is anytime you get those guys like Sebastian Aho is one, Marty Nietzsche's is another, those guys that you just need to have eyes on at all time. And how about this tonight? How about this? I'm just looking at the box score for the Hurricanes. Marty Necas did not have a shot on goal. He had one official shot attempt, but for a guy who is up near the top of the leaderboard in points, Marty Necas did not have a shot on goal tonight. That's good defense. That is some pretty good defense here tonight. Who gets the drumstick, Rossi or Gus? Both were outstanding tonight. That's a good question. It's a great question, actually. Rossi was handing out apples like he was somebody that worked at an apple orchard. 4 assists tonight. I would probably give it to Gus. Just because, goalie shutouts are always fun. And I would lean that route if I were handing it out. But, Rossi's very worthy as well. Whoever they end up deciding is certainly worthy of the title. Got to figure out the home thing before playoffs. Otherwise, they might be in trouble at home. I don't know why the records are so skewed. Like 15-3-3 on the road, 10-8-1 at home. I don't get that. Like, you would think that a team with this style of play, you'd think it'd be indicative of success at home, but I think it speaks a lot to the Wild's kind of wanting to have that underdog mentality this year and wanting to be a team that nobody expects anything from and wanting to be a team that can go into anybody's building, silence their crowd, and come away with wins. In fact, that's probably what it is. This is a Wild team that's built on stopping the opponent from scoring more than it is like getting out to early leads. So I think that's where the success comes from, is being able to go on the road, quiet a road environment, quiet the crowd, and play your style by taking the opponent out of their game. I think that's part of it, but 10-8-1 is not great. And especially if as the second seed you host, say, Colorado, you're going to need to find a way to pick up the wins at home when the situation arises. Although, to be fair, Colorado's not great at home either. Colorado is 11-8-1 at home. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's very odd because the last few years the Wild have been good at home, not great on the road, and now all of a sudden it's flipped. Going to be a neck-and-neck battle for Vezina between Gus and Hellebuyck till the end of the season. This is the real Gus. He's been maintaining nearly perfect goaltending this entire year. Gus really has put together a season in which the dud starts are very minimal, and this just looks like what he is at this point. And if you look at what happened to him last year, goals against average just over 3 on the season, I think it was 3.06. If you go back and look at some of his worst games and take them out, his numbers are still in line with where he's been at so far this season. And like 26 games this year, he's 17-6 and 2.28 goals against and a .924 save percentage. That's not factoring in tonight's numbers, so that gives him win number 18 on the season. He had 20 wins all of last year, and 22 was his high, so it looks like he's going to substantially best that with good play down the stretch. He's on pace he's projected to start 56 games this year and go 37-13-6. That'd be pretty darn good. That'd be pretty good if he can hit that mark, maybe get a few more starts down the stretch and get to 40 wins. Yeah, that'd put him in that same category as Hellebuyck, but I just think it's going to be Hellebuyck this year because he's starting literally every game for that Jets team. They may be like, what is the number? And it sounds like the Jets lost. Yes, they did. They got beat by Detroit. Oh, gross. Ick. Yeah, and that was at home too. Buzz, woof. Ugh. Hellebuyck is 24-5-2. So he started 31 games. He's on pace to start 64 games for the Jets this season. He's going to get the Vezina by volume, and obviously the numbers are good too, but he's going to get the Vezina by volume, I think. He starts too many games for anybody else to really be in the conversation. I mean, there will be finalists, but it's much like Bedard with the Calder last year. It's Hellebuck's Vezina to lose at this point, unless he just completely melts down, which is entirely possible. It feels like Winnipeg, and I mean they kind of did, but it feels like they really haven't had a ton of adversity yet this year. They had the one stretch. They had the one stretch of the season where they lost 5 of 6. But other than that, like, you start the season 15-1. Now they're 27-12-2. So they've come back down to earth since that hot start. And maybe there's a course correction coming in April. We'll see. This is truly the best we've looked all year. Like, there wasn't a second where we were in trouble at all. That was one of the best teams in the East. I mean, it is, if you put a short list together of the best games of the year, which I would absolutely love to do right now while I have the schedules up. I mean, in terms of the most complete games of the season, obviously the games against the St. Louis Blues, but beating Florida and Tampa Bay back-to-back, pretty impressive so far this year. The Edmonton game was certainly another. I mean, there have been good games this year, but it's a short list of games that truly have been just in hands. Like, you score the first goal of the night, and you're like, all right, I think we got this. Gustavsson now 18-6-3 with a 2.20 goals against average and a .926 save percentage and 3 shutouts. He ranks 3rd in the NHL in goals against average and is tied for 3rd in wins and shutouts. So he's a finalist at this point. And if he just continues to, like, imagine if he goes on a run down the stretch with this team trying to battle Winnipeg for the top spot. Imagine the Hellebuyck-Gus battle that we're going to get, like Hoptics was alluding to. And hopefully Hellebuyck loses 30 or 40 in a row. That'd be great. Maybe they'll just lose 50 games in a row or 40 or whatever we're at. That'd be fun. Wild D has to be recognized as the best D-core in the league, and that's with Midzi, Brodin, and Spurgeon hurt for periods of time. It is crazy because it's the same cast of characters that we saw last year for the most part, and yet the defensive numbers are, I mean, if we let's go to the stats. Let's check the stats. If we go to the stats on a team perspective, goals against per game, the Wild are 6th at 2.69 in the entire league. Let's do Money Puck here. In terms of goals against, in 5-on-5, the Minnesota Wild have allowed the 4th fewest 5-on-5 goals tied with Toronto and Winnipeg with 62. Los Angeles Kings have allowed the fewest at 58. Calgary second with 61. The expected goals, where's the per 60? The goals against per 60. The Minnesota Wild are second at 1.88 in 5-on-5 play, behind the Winnipeg Jets. So it has to be talked about as one of the best D-cores in the league. And the thing I think that has allowed for the change is that guys are just not like, you see it when things go kittywampus. When players are trying to do too much, then you see those careless turnovers and you see the shots given up on the other end. When they simply play their system and play within themselves, they're impossible to beat. So again, I'll keep saying it. I think John Hines and Jack Capuano need a ton of credit for taking this group and finding a way to elevate it. Because you want to know what the number was last year for the Minnesota Wilds? The goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 was 2.47. That was 15th in the league. And for the season, the Minnesota Wilds gave up 163 5-on-5 goals last year. We are just about to the halfway point of the season, and the Wild have given up, I think, 68. So they're on pace to give up about 20 or 30 fewer 5-on-5 goals this year than they did last year in one season. Now, if you want to go to 2022-2023, the Minnesota Wild were third in the league with 140 5-on-5 goals given up. Now, if you want to talk about 5-on-5 scoring, 5-on-5 goals for, the Minnesota Wild are 18th right now at 76. So they have found a way to limit the 5-on-5 goals for. They've found a way to improve the scoring a little bit in the 5-on-5 department, but the fact that they have substantially reduced the 5-on-5 goals given up is a big reason as to why they are doing what they do. I can hop back to this comment too. There was about a 2-goal swing in terms of goals saved above expected. So when Filip Gustavsson was out of the lineup, you're talking about a goalie who basically saves one extra goal per game when he's out there. And the goalie numbers, if they've been updated, Filip Gustavsson is now third in the league. When was this updated? This was updated this morning. So you add 2.4 to this, that'll get Gustafsson over 20. Did Lucas Dostal play today? No. So, and let's see how Connor Hellebuck did. Filip Gustavsson will be in second place in goals saved above expected by a small margin, depending on how much of a crater Hellebuck was against the Red Wings. Maybe he had a -4 goals saved above expected. Well, Detroit actually earned most of what they got. So he was a slight negative in that department. But Filip Gustavsson now has saved roughly 21 goals above expected. So it's basically 1 goal per game that he's keeping off the board. Now, Marc-Andre Fleury is right around even or slightly below even. So that's, if you're just even, then that's 1 goal more that you add for the other team. And if it's in negative territory, as it was with Jesper in one of his starts, that's where you get the 2-goal swing in the saved above expected department. Would be curious what the Eastern versus Western home versus away games have been. That's a good question. So Eastern Conference home games so far this year have been Columbus, Tampa Bay, Toronto. So they're 3-0 in those. Montreal, 4-0. Philly at home, 5-0. Florida was the first loss on December 18th, so 5-1. Ottawa, 5-2. So the Wild are 5-2 against the East at home. And that would mean 7-1 on the road. The only road loss for the Wild against the Eastern Conference was that Philly game at the beginning of the season. So 7-1 on the road, 5-2 at home versus the East so far this season. And then Western Conference at home, 0-1-1, 0-2-1, 0-3-1, 1-3-1, 1-4-1, 1-3-1, 2-3-1, 3-3-1, 3-4-1, 3-5-1, 3-6-1, 4-6-1, 5-6-1. The Wild are 5-6-1 against the West at home. And 1-1. 1-1. Oh, 0-1. This is riveting podcasting. 1-0-1, 2-0-1, 3-0-1, 3-0-2, 4-0-2, 5-0-2, 5-1-2, 6-1-2, 6-2-2, 7-2-2, 7-3-2, 8-3-2, 8-3-2 on the road against the West. I think that math works out, although I'm not confident in it because I don't know if I counted the Buffalo game in either of those tallies. Once I scroll with the comment section, I'm sure somebody will grab it. Gus is plus 550 for the Vezina. Hellebuyck currently the favorite at minus 650. I wouldn't be opposed to putting something on those odds for Gus. Plus 550. That's not bad. That's not bad value. The Avs are continuing to get better and better, and the worst part about it is Gabriel Landeskog is getting close to returning. So every point that the Wilds can continue to stack up to stay in front of them would be great. Of the three, this is an interesting question too. Of the three in the Central right now, who do we think through roughly half the season, who do we think is least likely to be there of the three? Of Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Colorado. I'm going to say something crazy here because the Minnesota Wild have been winning games without Kirill, without Jake Middleton, without now Jared Spurgeon. I don't know if the Winnipeg Jets will be in the top three by the time we get to the end of the season. Because they really haven't faced substantial injury issues. Colorado has. Minnesota Wild have. Dallas really hasn't either, but I don't know. I would be more trusting of what the other two have put together. Ladies and gentlemen, captain of the comment section is here. Denny is joining us here tonight. What's happening, Denny? How's your Saturday going? Yes, we will be. Oh, where'd it go? I just wanted to get back to. We are doing the show tomorrow at noon. Since the Minnesota Vikings play Sunday night game, we'll do the show at noon tomorrow right here on the old YouTube. So make sure to join us, and we will we'll talk it out. We'll talk it out. Noon p.m. The Avs did lose to the Canadiens, so good night for the Minnesota Wild in the Central. St. Louis lost. Wow, how about this? Colorado lost in a shootout. St. Louis lost to Columbus. Winnipeg lost to Detroit. Who else is in action? Nashville's playing Calgary. Dallas is currently tied with Utah with 2 minutes left to go in the third period. Pretty nice night for the Minnesota Wild from the Central Division perspective. Getting to bank a few points at this point. There was a tweet tonight on the old Twitter machine. Oh, that's why evidently the lights went out in the Kraken Oilers game for a minute. That's not the tweet I was looking for. This is from Tom Hone. The group that has been stating that Marco Rossi has been living on the coattails of the Calder of Kirill Kaprizov can all step on Legos barefoot. Rossi has been working his buns off to become a legit top six forward in this league and is this team's clear number one center. He's not wrong there. Rossi just continues to push it, continues to grind, continues to make plays. 4 assists in one game. I'd be hard-pressed to find many players on this current Wild team that have done that more than a few times. And what is he at now for points? Rossi with the assists. So he's up to 22 assists and 14 goals. 15 goals. Wait, what? Oh, that was Boldy's 14th. So 15 goals and 22 assists. So by my math, that's 37 points. And 37 points in 40 games. That's pretty good. What did he do in the face-off circle tonight? Carolina whooped the Wild in the face-off circle, but who cares? He was 7 out of 18. It clearly didn't matter. It clearly didn't impact the game. So, not something that really needs to be discussed too much. Mike, best play of the game, Boldy barreling down the middle of the ice, shouldering 42 off the puck, centering to Zuccarello for a goal. Boldy's so good at those. Like, he gets that from Kirill. They're all so good about keeping other players off the puck when they have control. And he did that. He's done that more than a few times so far this season. Also, great for Boldy to get that monkey off his back by getting the breakaway goal, going high. Good encouraging signs. We're continuing to see players snap their long goal droughts. over these last couple of games. Ryan Hartman against Washington. Now Eriksson Ek tonight. Matt Boldy tonight. I don't know who's next, but just continue to snap those and prosper is about the best way to put it. John Hines, 5 for 5 in coaches' challenges this season, and they're catching some pretty good stuff with those challenges. Like the one tonight where the Hurricanes player went through the bench door to exit the ice as opposed to simply jumping over the bench, jumping over the boards. I didn't know that was a thing, but that video staff's pretty darn good at coming up with things to challenge, and they took that goal off the board, and Carolina never had another chance. They never had anything else that was even close to a goal the rest of the night. 11 of 13 on the PK. Yeah, so the Wild were perfect in this game. They were perfect 4 for 4. I'm just going to check the last few games to determine. Nope, that's not what I wanted. To see how they've been recently. So let's check the Capitals game. I know they gave up a power play goal against the Predators. Capitals got one. So, I mean, we just needed it to be going in the right direction as not, just get it back on track. It doesn't have to be, we're not trying to get to the top of the league from a penalty kill perspective, just trying to get something that's workable. And 11 out of 13 is fine. 11 out of 13 will do the job. You just can't have 4 out of 13, which is what the Wild were getting before. And now that it's cooking, just continue to let it simmer. Big Marco Rossi day coming. Denny is the president of the Marco Rossi fan club. So that'll be a big discussion topic for the show tomorrow. And very much looking forward to that. Taking nothing away from the D-men, but D-men always look good when your goalie has a .926 save percentage. Yeah. And when your goalie posts a shutout. The thing that I like to kind of look at too is, let's look at this way. So let's give the defense credit for limiting the chances that come through, and the goalies the credit for making the saves. So that it's a combined effort. But at the end of the day, Gus makes everybody look good when he collects all of the saves that he does. Utah and Dallas in OT right now, it looks like they're probably going to a shootout. There's 2 minutes left in... Oh, no. Speak of the devil. The Dallas Stars get the win. Thomas Harley with 3 minutes remaining in the OT. Did Jason Robertson score in this one? No, he did not. How did Matt Dumba do? He played 14 minutes, 45 seconds, had one shot on goal. Who scored the goals? Something called Oscar Back and Jamie Benn and Thomas Harley scored for the Stars. Who is this? Oscar Back from Sweden. Has he played before this season? No, so he must just be a prospect. Okay. He's played 32 games. He's got a goal and 8 assists. Okay. When you subtract Goligoski, it makes a world of difference. That's true. When you go from your third pairing being John Merrill and Alex Goligoski to John Merrill and Zach Bogosian, it makes the difference. I think having healthy top-end guys, and Jonas Brodin still has a lot left in the tank. We've seen that this year, but it seems like it's really kicked up here recently. He's playing really well. Very well, in fact. Power play was moving the puck tonight. All credit to Marco Rossi doing his thing. Sorry, I'm scrolling through tweets at the same time that I'm there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Just trying to see if there's anything that we can catch from reaction after the game or things along that line. Power play also got it deep. These are both absolutely accurate. Denny's 100% right, as always. And Dan is also correct that power play is moving it deep, which is allowing for the success. One of the big differences from this season to last is no mind-bogglingly dumb, nonsensical penalties at inopportune times, and grit first is also gone. Devil's in the details. John Hines, that's his buzzword, is details, but I think we see now that that's a lot of what makes a team successful and not, is if you're willing to do the little things that are the difference between giving up a power play goal and killing a penalty. That's the big thing. That's the key for all of these. And that's what it comes down to. Besides San Jose and Chicago, is there really a dud in the West? There aren't many, Eddie. I think true duds. I mean, I would call Nashville a dud, but they're a dangerous dud. They've got too many good players to not at least give teams a fight. And we saw that the last time the Wild played the Predators, they pulled away to win because it's still a flawed Nashville roster, one that I thought was going to win the Central Division this year. But at the end of the day, they're going to give fight because they've got talented players. Chicago, Nashville, San Jose, Anaheim has done a much better, although Anaheim is, I think, starting to. No, they're 6-4 in their last 10. What am I talking about? I would say Seattle's definitely a disappointment. We knew that the Calgary start was not going to be sustainable, and what a shock. It has fallen off. But beyond that, I mean, you've got 8 deep. You are 8 deep in the West. And then St. Louis and Utah are kind of there too. But it's 8 really solid teams that occupy those playoff spots right now. And it's going to be really fun if the other 2 start to really fall out of this considerably. Calgary right now is only 1 point behind Vancouver, but Colorado has a 5-point lead on the Canucks in wildcard 1 and 2. If Calgary and St. Louis and Utah start to fall out of this, then there are going to be some teams that are open to making some moves at some point. Does Rossi get an NHL Star of the Week? Boy, he should. He's had Russo tweeted the stats that he's put up over the last few games. I think you should definitely get consideration for it at least. And how about this? Marco Rossi has 9 points in the 5 games that Kirill Kaprizov has not played. We wanted somebody to step up. Marco Rossi has. And now he just needs some people to kind of fill in behind and follow his lead. And guess what? Matt Zuccarello and Matt Boldy have done that just fine. Marco Rossi's 4 assists rank tied second in a game in Minnesota Wild history. It's the 10th 4-assist game in team history. Kevin Fiala tallied a franchise record 5 assists against Seattle on April 22nd, 2022. I remember that game. I want to say the score was something like 7 or 8-1. And it was the assist party all night long. Do you keep the current top line together when Kaprizov comes back? Slot him with Johansson and Ek since he elevates any line he's on. That'd be one way to do it, but I think what the Wild are hoping is that this stretch gets Matt Boldy back on track and Ek on track so that then you can put those two back together, keep the chemistry for Rossi and Zuccarello together, add Kaprizov into that, and player to be acquired later for the second line just gets matched in with that. That'd be one way to do it. I think that's probably what we see because Zuccarello on his game with Kaprizov on his game is pretty fun. But the big thing that we were looking for is just to get some scoring going again. And we're getting that. Rossi's 3 points away from his finishing point total of last season already. This is the only part that I don't like about ESPN is that it takes them so long to update their stats. So, well, I guess I could just do it. Long form. But I hate doing math because it makes me feel like an idiot. So 15 goals in 40 games is 0.375. So Rossi's on pace for just over 30 goals. And 22 assists. It's 0.55. And he's on pace for 45 assists. So Marco Rossi at present is on pace for 30 goals, 85 points. Right now. $85 points. That is got me feeling nicey. Stick with Rossi and he'll set you up to break your goal drought. I like that. That's a good call. Just call him the slump buster. Declan Chisholm had a good night tonight. Right you are, Bob. Let's just look at the numbers here. I did find it interesting that Dermott played 6 minutes. What did Chisholm have? 16 minutes, 40 seconds. Chisholm had a hit. Also played on the penalty kill. I like that. And also logged the second most time on the power play behind Brock Faber. Look, as long as these guys just don't put themselves in positions, like put themselves out of position, they do a really good job of, I think, just reading the play and laying out to block a shot or put themselves in position to alter a shot, deflect a puck. Like it's a pretty responsible decor when everything is going all right. Like they don't have to, as long as they play within the structure, they just don't have to, they don't have to do a ton. Just do your job and it'll be fine. It's like an offensive line in football. Everybody just handle your assignments and the defense as a unit will flourish, and they have. And it also helps when Winnipeg Jets How'd Logan Stanley do tonight, by the way? He had 3 blocks and 3 hits in 21 minutes, 55 seconds. Wow. That's a lot of time. With a healthy lineup, what is the expected outcome of us realistically in the playoffs? Would love to see the Wild in a conference final. If any Wild team is going to get to that point, it would be this team. The areas that concern me are the penalty kill and just getting the secondary scoring ironed out so you know who's going to step up when the top options get shut down by an opponent. Those are the two things. Like Filip Gustavsson, road or home, he's going to be fine. He is a player that can keep you in a playoff series for sure. Like I don't worry about that whatsoever. It just comes down to a couple of things, and the Wild have 42 games to get those ironed out for the playoffs. They have a style, I think, that is playoff conducive because of how well they do on the road, and they are predicated on limiting shots, limiting goals, limiting chances for the opponent, and letting Kirill Kaprizov have the room to operate. So if any team is going to do anything for the last however many that haven't, it's going to be this year's Wild team that I think does it. Carolina was averaging 30-plus shots per game. Wild held them to 21. They really took a lot out of that offense for Carolina, and really just made it difficult for them to be able to operate here tonight. Denny's also going to talk about an old Wild player who could be a new Wild player. I think I know who he might be talking about, but that's for tomorrow's show at noon. If you miss out on the noon show, then you'll miss out on who he's talking about. So make sure to tune in. Defense and the goalies are a symbiotic relationship. They need each other to be effective and to make each other look good. Very well said. Hopefully now that the secondary scoring has to step up, we won't have to give Kirill Christ the wheel and score on his own. It just would be nice to see some players, step up periodically. It doesn't even have to be all the time. It just has to be here and there. That's all. Defense has always been solid. It's been the lack of scoring for years now. If we continue to get secondary scoring, as we call it, which is just regular scoring for other teams, yeah, that's well said, Ross. Very well said. The Nashville Dangerous Duds, Predators. For once, a record not held by Kaprizov. Just it's the one, but give it enough time, give it enough players, and he could break that too. Yeah, we're getting to the points parts. Denny with the reveal here. Mikhail Granlund. Very good chance of coming home. Could you see the Wild trading for Granlund as a rental? Well, it certainly wouldn't cost you as much as some of the other potential players would. I'm working on getting a crossover lined up with Gil from Locked On Islanders, but I have a feeling Brock Besser is going to be a high price tag. Same with Brock Besser. And so would you want to pay that, or would you rather go get somebody on like that B tier who just isn't Marcus Johansson. That's the trade-off. It just depends on your personal preference. I'd take Granlund back in a heartbeat. Might even be able to get him on the cheap since he's on a terrible San Jose team right now. It certainly would be cheaper. Maybe a mid-round pick. Maybe. Perhaps. I guess we'll see. I wonder if the Jets could do it over again. Would they have kept Chisholm and waived Stanley? That would be the logical thing. That'd be the logical thing to do, but the Jets don't appear to be a player. The Jets don't appear to be a team that is intent on operating under logic. Which, to be fair, sometimes I don't either. But ultimately, another quality win for the Minnesota Wild here as they beat the Carolina Hurricanes. They're now 25-11-4 on the season. And from a points perspective, the Minnesota Wilds currently sit 54. They have the third most points in the West. They have the fourth most points in the entirety of the NHL. That's in the entirety of the NHL. So I think we're in a good spot. Just need to get a couple of pieces back and healthy to really spread our wings and fly. Granlund can play both. He can play wing. He can play center. I am in favor of the versatility always because it just gives you options and it gives you different looks. It gives you different everything. You may have a player that you only use in face-offs for particular situations. It's just nice to have different options. John Hines strikes me as a bit of a card player. He likes to have as many hands as he can, and Granlund would bring you the ability to play center, but we know the spot that needs to be upgraded is that wing spot on the right side. What about Mika Zibanejad? The only thing that really steers me clear of that one is his contract. I gotta find what it is exactly. Mika, yeah, it's $8.5 million per season, all the way up until 2030. That's a hefty price tag. You'd have to get the Rangers to retain at least half. And even then, it's just looking at the numbers here before we go. I mean, Zibanejad has 8 goals and 15 points. Yeah, there would be other options maybe from New York, but I think I'll pass on Zibanejad. Just in a midst of a slump, he's a -21 currently, and he only has 7 total power play points, 2 goals, 5 assists. I'm gonna say no on that one, but we you know what we're gonna do for the entirety of the month of February while the break is going on for the Four Nations face-off is that's going to be our trade ramp up. So I know I have put a bit of a moratorium on trade stuff until, well, indefinitely, but February will be when we hit that hard, because there are some teams that I think have intriguing options. So that'll be the play there. But I think that'll do it here tonight. Minnesota Wild pick up a pretty comfortable 4-0 win over the Carolina Hurricanes, and they continue to just eat up opponents on the road. Marco Rossi with 4 assists. Matt Boldy, Matt Zuccarello both score, as does Eriksson Ek. Lock in for that Vikings game, people. But first, noon tomorrow right here on YouTube. We'll see you then. It'll be an unforgettable noon show, so make sure to join and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Wild pick up a 4-0 win. Hit that like button before you head out, and we will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Wild.